Hello and welcome back to Grumpy's Kitchen and Provisions. Today we're going to make gumbo. So we're going to get started with the prep and then we'll put everything together and you'll see how it goes. But we're going to start with onions, green pepper, and celery, which is considered the Trinity, Holy Trinity for Cajun cooking, where mirepoix, onion, celery, and carrots are in French cooking. The Holy Trinity is, the equivalent of your mirepoix for any Cajun cooking. So, and then we're going to add garlic, which I think then calls the Holy Trinity. So let's get started. So we're going to start with our celery. So I'm just going to cut it down the center about halfway as it gets larger. I'm going to turn it this way and just a rough, a half inch, half to 3/4 of an inch. So the biggest thing, you just want all your vegetables approximately the same size. We're going to put our dish. Okay, next are our peppers. Just going to the end, and then cut the sides like so. And then just discard that piece. Do the same for this one. Cut the sides. Okay, pop the top out of that one. Okay, now we're just going to cut this approximately the same size, half to 3/4 of an inch. You can stack them on top. Grumpy always cuts from the inside. It's just easier than cutting through the skin. So same thing, half to 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so a traditional Trinity is going to be 2 parts onion to 1 part celery and green pepper. Mine's not going to be quite that. It's probably going to be like a 1-to-1 on all of them. Again, Mrs. Grumpy's not a big fan of the onion. Can't eat it, so we're going to keep it a little lighter so she can at least have a taste. For our onion, we're just going to cut it 1, 2 times that way, and then 1, 3 or 4 times the other way. So again, you have approximately the same size pieces for all of your stuff. Okay, there we have it. Now we have 3 large cloves of garlic. Again, we're going to give them a smack, smack on the root end, and then peel them out. There you go. We're just going to give this a mince. Doesn't have to be real fine. Again, there's hundreds of recipes of gumbo. This is just one that Grumpy uses. Okay. So next thing, we're going to get an andouille sausage of your choice. I'm sure if you live places where you can get a better one, this is just one I bought at the store. We're going to cut it into manageable pieces. Just going to cut it in half. And we're just going to cut it into, same thing, 1/2 inch pieces. Okay, so there's our andouille. Lastly, we have a couple of chicken breast. You can use thighs, you can use whatever you want. So I always cut the undesirable pieces out. You see where that tendon attached there? We're going to cut that. Save it for your chicken stock. I'm going to trim any fat. On this side here, you can see I'm just going to trim that. That's actually a little bit of bone and cartilage, but fine if you're making chicken stock. No biggie. Okay, so that one looks good. This one's in pretty good shape. Okay, so now I'm just going to cut this same thing into half, 3/4 inch pieces. You can cut it that way if you want. Okay, now our chicken's good to go. We'll be back and show you the rest of it. Okay, welcome back. We'll start to make some gumbo. So the first thing we're going to do is sear our andouille sausage just to get a little caramelization. It'll release some of the fat, and we're going to use that when we make our roux. So I'm going to add just a little bit of oil. Doesn't need to be much. A teaspoon or so just to get it going. I want my pan on a medium-high heat. Get our spoon. So we're going to be making our roux. You really want a wooden spoon when we're stirring our roux. So, well, one, so it doesn't scratch the pan, but also it's going to be getting all the bits off, and you want kind of a flat bottom as you're stirring. Okay, so let's start with our andouille in the pot. We're not necessarily browning, we're just rendering a little bit of the fat out. So that's going to help produce some flavor for the roux and the whole rest of the dish as we render some of this fat out. So it'll release enough fat, but I just added a little bit to get it started to make sure it doesn't stick at all. So you might have a local butcher or a local store, a shop. If you visit Louisiana, I'm sure they have phenomenal andouille sausage. My favorite was a Paul Prud'homme's andouille that I used to get in restaurants, and it was the best I've ever had. Now that it's rendered out a little bit, I'm going to take it. We're going to take it out of the pan, and then we're going to sear our chicken. So again, you want to leave all that, the fat, the fond that's in there from sauteing your sausage. That's going to add in the flavor of the roux and the gumbo, and it's also going to season and help sear the chicken. Okay, So next off, we're going to throw our chicken in. Again, this does not have to be cooked. It's not going to be fully cooked. We're just searing it to get some of that flavor in the chicken. Anytime you sear something, you get some color on something, you're adding flavor. Okay, chicken seared. I'm just going to put this back on the plate. All right. Now we have a little bit of stuff in the bottom. That's great. That's just more flavor. So now we're going to go in with, so I'm going to do a combination when I make my roux of butter and oil. So this is just a neutral oil, 1/4 cup. So you could do all oil, you could do all butter. I'm going to do, again, a combination. It's your preference. Roux is equal part fat and flour cooked down, and that's what's going to help thicken and flavor the gumbo. So on this, I just want it on a medium heat. You don't want it too high because you don't want to burn, especially I'm using butter as that melts. We don't want to burn the butter. And the roux really needs to cook on kind of a medium-low heat for a long period of time to get the flavor. So we're going to do a dark roux. So roux is in different stages, and so we really want kind of a brown roux. That's what's going to help the flavor and the color of the gumbo, where it's kind of that real dark brown, has a nice nutty flavor. You'll see the whole process here. Our butter and our oil are melted. So I'm going to go in with about 1 cup of flour. I'm going to stir that in. Till it's incorporated. So you can see the color the roux is now. So what we're doing is cooking the flour. Add just a little skosh more. When you're making the roux, the big key, you can't just put the roux on and go walking away. You really need to tend it, stir it quite consistently. Not every second, but every 30 seconds or so, you want to give it a stir. You don't want your roux to burn on the bottom of the pan. So just barely cooked. So at this point, it's good to go for really anything. But for the gumbo, you want it to be a dark and nice brown roux. You can't rush it. So it's been about 50 minutes so far. We're getting close to, so we want even a little beyond a brown roux. We're approaching a brown roux at this point, but we want it quite dark for our gumbo. again, that's going to create the level of flavor in color that you want in the gumbo. So again, at this point, it is important to continue to stir every 15 to 20 seconds. You don't want it burning on the bottom. And towards the end, it does go faster than it did in the beginning. I know at first it seems like it was never going to happen, but we are a little over 55 minutes at this point. We're probably going to be right around an hour total. Again, you could have done this on a little higher heat if you were just going to stir consistently. So when things take this long, it really kind of helps you appreciate kind of the labor of love that cooking can be. And part of where your expense, your cost of certain things come in. You've paid somebody to stand over a pot for, tending it pretty consistently for an hour. Maybe the reason you paid $8, $10, $12 for a bowl of gumbo when you're in the Big Easy. Because really, it's kind of a peasant dish. There's not a whole lot of expense in the ingredients. It can be as expensive or as cheap as you want to make it. So this one we're doing chicken and sausage. We could add some shrimp. You could add crab. You could add, whatever you want. Be creative. So you do want to be careful as you're stirring. You don't want to get any of this on your skin because it will burn the layers of skin right off. This is just like if you're cooking sugar or caramel. You're making peanut brittle, the same concept. This is like molten lava, so you for sure don't want to get it on your skin. So at this point, we're at a brown roux stage. We're going to go just a little bit more before we start adding our stuff because we want our gumbo nice. The richness and the depth of flavor that this adds, doing this just extra couple of minutes to get it to the next stage is really the difference in a good gumbo and a great gumbo. So this looks just like a brown gravy at this point. So just so the comparison, so this is like white flour like we started with and where we are now. This is the stage we've been looking for. So a little beyond a brown. We've been about an hour in, 5 or 10 minutes. So at this point, I'm going to reserve, I don't know, a couple of tablespoons. We can use this to thicken it a little bit later on if we need it a little thicker. Again, don't get it on your hands because you will get burned. Okay, so now we're going to go in with our Trinity. We're going to cook those. So again, this stuff is like lava. So we're going to cook our peppers, onions, and celery. So there's definitely several ways to do it. You could have done a separate pan and sauteed your vegetables and just used your roux to thicken the gumbo later. But we're going to do it this way. I'm going to add in my garlic. So I turned it up to a high heat at this point. So I was cooking it really on a medium heat, about 300 degrees while I was making the roux. All right, now I'm going to go in with my chicken and all the juice. I'm going to go in with my andouille sausage and all its juice. At this point, I'm going to go in with the Grumpy's Mardi Gras blend. There's 1.5 tablespoons, 2 cans of diced tomatoes, and now 7 cups of chicken stock, chicken broth, what have you. At this point, we're going to bring this up to a simmer and let it simmer for 20-30 minutes to get all the vegetables cooked, the chicken the rest of the way cooked, and incorporate all these flavors. The other thing, we're going to add 2 or 3 bay leaves. At this point, I am going to use a little bit of my reserved roux. So that's about a tablespoon. And we're going to add it in. So it does have to be simmering because you want that to incorporate. So just like adding a slurry, when you add a roux, whether it's cooked, or you could even make a raw roux, not for this application, but if you were trying to quickly thicken something, you could just combine some flour and some oil and add it to a simmering liquid, and it would thicken it. So we'll demonstrate that another time. So I'm going to add another maybe teaspoon. We're going to let that cook so you can see how it kind of dissolves, melts on my spoon. I just stir it around a little bit. Just like that. It's off my spoon. We're going to stir that. And I should have kind of done a before and after to see how much thicker it gets, but you should be able to see just watching the video. Because nobody wants a watery gumbo. We're going to add just a little bit, a little smidge more. So that's really, let's just add it all. So that was really all of my gumbo, or all of my roux. Now add that in there, give it a stir to make sure it's totally dissolved. So again, at the beginning, you don't know exactly, how it's gonna. So the other thing, I could have only put 6 cups of chicken stock, chicken broth in, and it would have thickened fine with reserving the roux. Oh, look at that. Look how silky and kind of velvety that sauce is. Okay, so the last thing we're going to add, like any good gumbo, needs to have some okra. So we're going to throw our okra in. We really just want to heat it through. It does not have to be cooked. We'll cook it 2 or 3 minutes. So that was frozen okra, so it's going to take a second to come back up to a simmer. So the very last thing we're going to add, so I've already tasted, the flavor is phenomenal, but we're going to add gumbo filet. So we're going to add, let's say 2 teaspoons. So gumbo filet is ground sassafras leaves. So it adds kind of an earthiness, and it also helps thickening a little bit, but you don't add it when it's boiling. You add it at the very last minute, but it adds kind of I don't know. It's in a lot of your gumbos, Cajun, Louisiana cooking, but it really adds kind of a very earthy tone to the dish. So that was two. So 2.5 teaspoons or thereabouts. So there we have our gumbo. We're going to turn it around and we're going to scoop some up. But doesn't it look delicious? Very hearty. Okay, so there we have it. So next time you want to make something delicious, a little different, something you don't have all the time, try this delicious gumbo. So we could have added some shrimp there at the end before when I added the, after I added the okra. A few minutes later, you could have added some, some shrimp, let them cook for 2, 3, 4 minutes. That's all it takes in a simmering liquid. And you would have had a chicken, sausage, and shrimp gumbo. So there we go. We're going to wipe our edge. Don't be sloppy. So there you have it, a delicious chicken and sausage gumbo that you made all on your onesie with just a few ingredients in a lot of time. So it is a commitment of time, but it is so worthwhile. I mean, look at all the stuff. Look how brown that sauce is, the liquid. All right, get some sausage. All the flavors of Louisiana, of New Orleans. If you've been there, try this recipe. Let me know how you like it. I appreciate you as always. Until next time, I'm grumpy and grateful for you to continue to follow, like, and share. Share, share, share. And pick up your seasonings if you don't have any yet at our Etsy shop at Grumpy's Provisions. Have a great day.